Hi friends, welcome to the session on entrepreneurship. This time we will concentrate on entrepreneurial discovery. The objectives of this session are in terms of 5 factors. First, we would like to study in detail the key entrepreneurial characteristics and a discussion on the excitements and challenges of working with entrepreneurs. All of us will have at some point of time an opportunity to work with an entrepreneur. Well, even if we are not entrepreneurs, we will have opportunities, and I would like to detail a bit. Secondly, we will also think about the excitements and challenges of working with entrepreneurs. As part of the entrepreneurial self-discovery, we require certain tools and methodologies to discover if we have the entrepreneurial spark in us. That is covered in the second module. Thirdly, we will see a number of personal assessments which are possible in this entrepreneurial area. Then we talk about the importance of entrepreneurship to the national economy and the various methodologies to address the potential and usefulness of entrepreneurship. We will also talk about the paradoxes which are pregnant in the entrepreneurship. Finally, we will talk about possible approaches to sustain entrepreneurial momentum. Before we plunge into the entrepreneurial discovery portion, let us look at what we covered so far. In our sessions on entrepreneurial journey, we looked at few factors. The first was on the initial journey. How does an entrepreneur start his journey through his entrepreneurial firm? We looked at two ways of doing that, which are both intertwined. One was at the corporate level or the functional level, and the second is at the product level. We looked at the stages involved in both the aspects. At the corporate level, we said that we got to plan, we got to organize, we got to resource, and we got to execute. At the product level, we said that we have to ideate, we have to develop a prototype, we have to test a prototype, and then we have to validate the prototype, and finally through an iterative process reach a stage where we can successfully commercialize. We also said that in the entrepreneurial journey, we have 3 critical parameters which are more difficult than the rest, and therefore which are more important than the others. One was the organization for talent, second is resourcing for growth, and thirdly product development. Then we talked about the manners in which an entrepreneurial firm makes its mark in the overall marketplace. We said that there could be market segmentation and expansion at one level, we could be capturing of the emerging markets at another level, and thirdly creation of totally new markets, which we again looked at from a technology point of view. We said that market expansion and segmentation takes place largely with conventional products and technologies, but executed in a superior fashion. We said that the available processes, available products could be digitized and therefore can be reinvented. We also said that the basic industries themselves can be completely transformed by bringing new technologies. Then we also said that all entrepreneurs are not the same. Some are very good at creation, that is establishing ventures and then growing them. Some are good in the next stage, which is preserving and nurturing the enterprises, and some at times are good at even destroying, because at times divesting and restructuring of enterprises is important for you to become lean and then become fit to go forward further. We also said that like with established companies, a triad of vision, strategy and execution is important. Vision sets the overall purpose, strategy sets the plan, and execution gives you the metrics and timelines by which you can measure yourself. So with this background, we will look at how potential entrepreneurs can discuss themselves as entrepreneurs. Now everybody has different objectives and goals in life. For example, as you go through the student phase, some people would like to become a sportsman or sports person, somebody would like to be a theatre artist, somebody would like to be an engineer, somebody a gardener, somebody wants to be a producer of movies. So different people have got different quests in their life, as you may say. Some would like to be writers, some would like to be journalists. So this is little independent of the education which we go through. Why does that happen? Because either by genetic disposition or through family upbringing or through the influence of friends and relatives, we got certain role models which we develop in our system, therefore, we get that trigger. Quite independent of that, as we course through our educational journey or even as we go through our experience system, we will get certain triggers which mold this quest for being an entrepreneur. Now, I have given 6 ways in which the entrepreneurial quest comes into our system, and again you will see that there are 2 aspects of it. One, a sort of negative aspect, and second, a positive aspect. These 2 act as pairs. For example, the positive aspect in the first trigger is that we have got lots of confidence in our own technical and managerial competencies, and then we also see a clear need for a product or service which uses those technical and managerial competencies. So, even if you have got a lot of technical competencies, if you do not see a market opportunity or a product opportunity, we are unlikely to be an entrepreneur, because we can't be an entrepreneur just for competency's sake. We got to be an entrepreneur because we want to set up a business and we want to make some wealth created out of that. Therefore, there is a pair here. The second aspect is that we do not want to be part of a paid job system, because we do not want this 9 to 5 working system. We want to have in a way creators of our own destiny. So, this disliking to be part of a 9 to 5 job system is paired with a liking to make one's own destiny. So, somebody who says that I should be in command of my destiny is likely to be more an entrepreneur than a job seeker. Thirdly, some people are very ambitious and aggressive to go forward in life. Some people will say that no, I would like to earn as much money as possible but retire at 40. I mean, different people are made different way. So, dislike, disenchantment with a slow, even if it is a steady and secure growth in compensation, coupled with the allure of capitalistic wealth making in an entrepreneurial system. This again kind of combines to say that yes, you should be an entrepreneur. Some people say that okay, this 30-year tenure or 40-year tenure and then retiring after that does not really appeal to me. I do not want to be kind of lost in the chapters of the history. So, I would like to set up something which is my own legacy, my institution. So, those people also would like to be entrepreneurs. Then some people have got lot of disengagement to take orders or to take instructions. They say that I want to be completely my own boss, which is slightly different from charting your own destiny. This is a kind of little personalized way of looking at things. Therefore, he says that I have my own way of doing things, I do not want to listen to anybody, I will rewrite the rules as per my wishes. So, such people also become entrepreneurs. Lastly, some people are fired by a nationalistic fervor. They say that India is having so many issues and we need to contribute. Like when we talk about today plastic not being used, somebody may say that I should contribute to this national endeavor of banning or removing once a time use of plastic. Therefore, I will come up with some technologies for that. Or people may talk about waste minimization or environmental treatment, or finding a way in which there could be charging stations which are capable of charging batteries of higher power. There could be many ways in which people could be fired with nationalist fervor. In some cases, this could be a combination of all of these things, but underlying all these kinds of triggers is that a belief in one's competence, that yes, I can do it. Now, we will talk about 3 cases which we will briefly cover. Again, as I said in the previous session, there is nothing right or wrong about it, and we will look at the positives of what people have done. We will talk about Dr. Araikiswamy Velumani, who is the founder of Thyrocare. He was a gentleman who was an analytical chemist. He worked as shift chemist for 14 years in a small pharmaceutical company in Coimbatore. And analytical chemistry is that part of chemistry which uses sophisticated instrumentation to characterize chemical compounds, and that is extremely important to make sure that the pharmaceuticals are produced to the best possible standards. And when we talk about medical diagnostics, it is also analytical chemistry, except that it is a little more of biochemistry which was involved in this. So, while at work he noticed the powerful role of sophisticated analytical biochemistry which he possessed in fast and accurate medical diagnostics. At that point of time 20 years ago or so, what we had in India were many mom and stop kind of small digital diagnostic services where possibly people were taking blood in kind of normal glass panes and then looking at it, and they were not interconnected, they were standalone. Some were good and some were very normal, ordinary. So, he saw a need in the marketplace for fast, accurate, high throughput, high volume diagnostic services which can do with one simple sample of blood a whole number of diagnostic tests. So, he established, and he also started that looking at the poor knowledge of thyroid deficiency or thyroid malfunction. So, he named his company as Thyrocare and started his entrepreneurial journey, and that was probably the first big diagnostic chain, and it was very well received in the marketplace. It had a very successful public offer. But then he also pioneered a business model of decentralized collection and centralized processing, which means that he has perfected the art of reaching out to the households. He perfected the art of close proximity to the customer locations. He perfected the agility of supply chain, and he centralized the high technology throughput so that he would be in a position to provide fast, accurate and very quick reporting. So, this is one case where based on the competencies he could set up some very good venture. We all know about Nirma. There was a time when Hindustan Lever, at the time it was Hindustan Lever, not Unilever, the company was completely in domination of all household detergents, and they were highly priced because there was not much competition. In 1969, Dr. Patel started Nirma because he believed that the Indian households do not have a lower cost version. So, he saw types of kitchen cleaning at that point of time. One was the detergent based lever style of dishwashing, and then the very traditional of sand based or very traditional way of kitchen vessel cleaning. He said that I will get something which is intermediate, but it was not technology per se in this venture. It was more an ability to market a new product which appealed to the native section of the population, but indulge in high level of marketing so that you are able to stand up to the multinationals capabilities. So, he demonstrated the typical entrepreneurial characteristics of creativity, passion and also gumption, that means guts, to take on a multinational behemoth with a product that struck the chord in the native population. He was also modern in thinking because just because the product was not really that high technology, he did not satisfy himself with the normal marketing techniques. He deployed modern marketing techniques. He created icon, the Nirma girl, and really used saturated marketing on the various media channels including television. As we all are aware, Nirma became a much referred case study in business schools as reflective of Indian entrepreneurship. Then we have another case of Kent. We all knew from the last several decades the purity of water has always been an issue. So, the first group of water purifiers were based on ultraviolet technology, which generally killed the germs. They were very good at killing bacteria. That did not mean that the water was indeed pure. Water had lots of dissolved, undissolved entities. They also carried lots of trace minerals, trace metals which were not very good for the body system. And I covered earlier that many times entrepreneurs set up their journey because they themselves have experienced a problem, like we think of Redbus, where they had problems in booking the tickets. So, said that why not I use technology for aggregation and then have a bus ticketing system like we have the railway ticket system. Similarly, we have this self publishing company called Notion Press. The founders had difficulties in publishing their book when they wanted to publish their book, and then they said that this kind of normal editorial cycle and approval and non-approval and then improvement systems take years and months at times, and therefore, why not we have a self-publishing business as something which appeals to this kind of budding authors. So, sometimes when we experience certain problems, we feel that as potential entrepreneurs we can solve those problems. So, this gentleman had issues of illness in the family attributed to the contaminated water. He being a mechanical engineer, he said that let me figure out how I can solve it. So, he looked at the ultraviolet issues, and they said that it does only bacteria killing. So, why not I come up with additional filters which can really remove the dissolved, undissolved impurities. At that point of time, reverse osmosis was more for industrial use, like in pharmaceutical companies and other areas. So, he made miniature versions of reverse osmosis equipment in the water purifier, patented his technology, and then he started this Kent Fury system. It started in a garage. The whole family combined to support him with divisionalized responsibilities, and this is one successful case where you lead the industry without really foreign technology, but with the indigenous effort. So, when we look at all the three cases, Thyrocare, Nirma and Kent, you will find that they belong to three different areas. Thyrocare was in healthcare, Nirma was in consumer goods, fast moving consumer goods, and Kent is in white goods. But there were certain common characteristics. One, all the founders had got core competencies. Two of them had core competencies in technology, one had core competence in marketing. The founders identified, based on their experience, based on their knowledge and based on their first hand experience, market gaps, and developed services or products which catered to the need. They were both first to market and they were also right to market. To my knowledge, there was no provocation or disenchantment in any of these things. All the three worked very well from the first start of the project. Therefore, they were first to market and right to market. They were all first generation entrepreneurs. They did not have the backing of an industrial family or even a high net worth individual. All the three ventures focused on meeting the native needs successfully. They created gaps, identified gaps, and provided the products and services that met. And also because India is a huge market, either for medical diagnostics or water purification or for domestic cleaning, there was huge potential for ramp up, and also more people could easily come into that area. More importantly, again they demonstrated the passion to overcome resource constraints and also to overcome intense competition, especially in the case of Nirma. While talking about entrepreneurship, we also have a kind of view, particularly in today's circumstances, that the more educated you are, the more specialized you are, the more likely you can be a successful entrepreneur. And as we go through the various stories of doctorates and highly accomplished people setting up entrepreneurial ventures, you tend to agree that you need to study hard, study smart and study long for you to be a successful entrepreneur. There is no denying that having high education and having high level of skill does help you in getting the entrepreneurial crown. But there is also this other side of entrepreneurship. There have also been college dropouts who have been highly successful in generating entrepreneurial enterprises. That is because this knowledge has two components. One is knowledge per se, that is an awareness of various scientific and technical matters. The other one is skill, an ability to create something new based on this knowledge, and that can be new also. That is, you can through your capability create new ways of doing things which is not necessarily related to the formal education. The other one is that there are certain aspects which are little more managerial than technical. Therefore, even without formal education you can be successful in doing those kinds of things. And thirdly, many times when you want to start something, it is not that you require the total education or total technology. You can do the first phase with whatever you have, and then as you scale up start acquiring newer capabilities. So, and also another aspect is that there is really no nexus between education and entrepreneurship on one hand, again no nexus between what shall we say, income status and entrepreneurship. In fact, there have been cases where people who had suppressed the social situation, suppressed income situation, they took to entrepreneurship as a way to fight out of the constraints and demonstrate to themselves and to the society that despite the handicaps they could kind of rise. Even when you look at some sports people who have come up again in the hard way, you can see that why look at all those things. Even when about Dr. Abdul Kalam, how he has come up from his humble beginnings to acquire so much knowledge and become a great scientist. All these things point out that there is this formal way or the textbook way in which we can grow in our lives, whether it is a professional life or an entrepreneurial life. There is also a non-formal way in which we can fight against all odds and become successful professionals and entrepreneurs. So, I will give you a few examples of college dropouts who became successful entrepreneurs. Today each of these companies is a leader. When you talk about Microsoft, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, then one of the biggest electronics hardware company, computer company, Dell, Michael Dell, Richard Branson's Virgin Airlines, Steve Jobs, Apple. So, the examples go on and on. All of these gentlemen who have, or lady, Coco Chanel, who have built these wonderful entrepreneurial institutions, did not have the kind of formal education which one would associate with entrepreneurship, but they created novel things. And you will see that in all these examples, they were almost the first to generate their kinds of enterprises. The desktop operating system was a vision, was an aspiration, and also executed very well by Bill Gates. Similarly, creating a media house compatible computer was Steve Jobs' dream. Walt Disney, how he created from cartoon animation to movie production seamlessly, that is another entrepreneurial dream. And of course, Henry Ford needs no mention, how he created the automobile, T-Mobile. In India also we have got many examples of dropouts who became successful entrepreneurs. We can talk about at least 10 people who have worked in various digital and non-digital services. Oyo Rooms is quite well known to us in terms of affordable room services. We also have Rahul Yadav, who established the housing.com as a platform for house seekers and rent seekers. Then we have FreeCharge, which is a digital payment app. So, potential is enormous. So, the point that I am trying to make is that you can look at this paradigm being college dropout in a completely different way. At times reverse correlations do not work out. Just because several people have been successful even being college dropouts, it does not mean that we should seek to be a college dropout to become an entrepreneur. The point here is that even as you are, let us say, first year, second year or third year, or even as you are a early executive or middle executive, there is always this option to explore how your knowledge and how your skill can be converted into an entrepreneurial venture. So, there is no perfect time when you become an entrepreneur, collecting all the knowledge that one should have to become an entrepreneur. It is a kind of process of continuous evolution, but what you require is the entrepreneurial quest or the trigger which we discussed a few minutes ago. So, there are basically three questions which we need to ask ourselves as we talk about our entrepreneurship. The first question is, am I creative? If I am a person who likes doing things in a repetitive manner without much disturbance, and if I am a person who would like to stay in my comfort zone, I teach what I teach day in and day out. I do not want to experiment with some new method of teaching, or I would not move out of my core area and try to understand something else, then probably I am not very good at entrepreneurship. So, the first question which I have to ask myself is, am I creative? Creativity means finding something new, novel, which is utilitarian, but also which is workable. Ideas per se do not mean creativity. We all have ideas, lots of ideas we have, but true creativity means an idea which can be made into a workable proposition. The second one, am I passionate? Have I got the ability to take on this entrepreneurial journey with finances or without finances, and make sure that I am in a position to deliver what I promised to deliver. The third one is, do I fulfill a larger purpose? Am I doing it just as a job substitution mechanism? Am I doing it for my daily living, or am I doing it because I am fulfilling a larger purpose? So, when you look at these three questions and answer yourself with a firm yes in each of these things, then probably you are ideal as an entrepreneur. So, let us look at these three questions in a little more detail. Two things: one, we must intuitively investigate ourselves, introspect on ourselves, and secondly, we should also logically introspect about ourselves, because when we look at ourselves in a mirror, although the physical apparition is there, we are biased in looking at how we see ourselves. Similarly, when we talk about our mental makeup, we introspect or reflect, many times we tend to be biased. We think that yes, we can do, but then we should have the objectivity to analyze ourselves whether we are doing that. So, when we say creativity, we are talking about something which is the prevailing need catered to an existing product or service. So, we have all the time products and services which meet all the basic needs, whether it is writing, whether it is sitting or standing or commuting or communicating. We have got always products which are being used. So, creativity means doing that in a different way, which is what a smart device has done or a smartphone done. It has kind of converged several functionalities into one product and added a creative substitute for a whole range of activities. That did not mean that the other products sat still. So, digital camera said that I cannot allow this situation to go on. So, digital camera came up with better lens resolution mechanisms. They also came up with wireless transfers. They also came up with the professional shooting and various other things. So, there is always this creativity which works within the competitive landscape. The second, when we talk about passion, it is very difficult to say, but passion includes grit and diligence. Passion is wanting to do some things at any cost, but as you keep doing it, you will get a lot of rejection, you get a lot of hurdles, and you find that the path is more difficult than what you are embarked upon. So, there are challenges, there are unviability situations. Am I passionate enough to keep chiseling away for my product? The third is that the purpose should be bigger than immediate technical, product or commercial goal. If I say that I am trying to do this wonderful pen only because I want to get revenues or I want to get market share, it is a goal, but it is not a purpose. If I say that this goal is to ensure that I make a mark in the digital communication space, then you are having a larger purpose. Similarly, when you talk about these diagnostic chains, and if you look at it as a business purpose, that is one kind of activity. But if you say that my purpose is to transform the diagnostic market in India and make sure that the medical diagnostics is a great help for promoting wellness rather than curing illness, that is a bigger purpose. So, it is important to define ourselves in terms of these three questions, question ourselves as much as possible, find out various answers and then triangulate these answers and find out whether we have the real entrepreneur spark in us.